Previously on Dare to Dream. After being plagued with lack of straight-line power in the Lamborghini Gallardo LP570-4 Super Trofeo, the Team FX Primus Aylezo crew were sent to Fuji early in the week with a monstrous task at hand: to do an engine transplant. They toiled away at the Tomei Sports Garage, and all efforts paid off as the team managed a great podium finish, which they dedicated to their country on its Independence Day. In this episode of Dare to Dream, the 2014 Lamborghini Blancpain Super Trofeo Asia Series heads to the first of two China events, this time at the southern coast of Guangdong at the Zhuhai International Circuit. The circuit will be hosting its well-known Pan-Delta Super Racing Festival, where a combination of GT and Formula cars as well as bikes are competing on one packed race weekend. The team took a short 3-hour flight to Macau. No, it was not for any form of gambling, but it is one of the fastest routes to Zhuhai from Kuala Lumpur. From the airport, the team took a cab to Gong Bei, the immigration checkpoint, where they hustled and bustled with a working crowd to cross the border into China. The sights along the way were impressive as they passed the lights at the gambling city of Macau into the lights of Zhuhai, also known as the Pearl River Delta, one of China's shopping and food havens. The early morning rain made it a nice start to the day, and as usual, Team FX Primus Aylezo started out early and were once again one of the first teams to arrive at the circuit. This provided the crew with ample time to get things in order. Since it was a packed race weekend, with 3 series running, including a bike race, the circuit had to place the container holding area quite a distance away from the pit. The boys did what they had to do, unloaded the container as usual, and began to move equipment to the assigned pit. Once at the pit, the boys immediately settled in and started with the race preparation. This included checking the steering alignment, as the drivers have mentioned an element of free play was evident while driving. Then there was some suspension setup to be made, as well as work on the brakes, as the combination of long straights, hairpins and sharp turns at the circuit can be quite punishing on both the car and the driver. There was another worry for the crew. The temperatures at the circuit are expected to climb over the week into the weekend, and the team has decided to add extra air ducts to further cool the cabin temperatures, allowing for more air for the drivers during the race. Yup, there is no air conditioning in this race car. Just as the sun started to set, drivers Zen Low and Aylezo went out on the track for a walk.
Brake, no throttle, nothing.
Yeah, no
just
throttle.
let the car roll.
Yeah.
Near the exit here.
Yeah, here I think around here. Throttle.
This is done at every circuit to familiarize and get to know the bumps and characteristics of the circuit. As usual, the topic of conversation during the walk is how to minimize lap time. Anyway, the view is always fantastic. The start of a brand new day means everyone needs to get their head in the game. Practicing every aspect of the race sequence while making sure all the equipment are in perfect working condition. The drivers are always happy to test their toys, especially some new communication equipment. All is set for the free practice session. Let's hear from Afiq how his session went.
The car was good. The practice went quite well, but I spun in second last turn. When I try a little bit later on braking, because the weather was very hot, and then the brake is overheated. I was in the gravel about 10 minutes and then waiting for the rescue. After that, we clean up the car and then we replace the driver, Zen.
Afiq had to wait for help to get him out of the gravel, ending his session earlier than expected. Once the car was back at the pit, Afiq quickly shared his thoughts on the track conditions with Zen, cautioning him on the various parts of the circuit and things to look out for. Meanwhile, the crew worked quickly to clean the car of debris and to get it back in shape for Zen's session. Just as the team got the car ready, another free practice casualty was brought in. Car number 23 also suffered from overheating brakes, but it was not as lucky to come out in one piece.
Afiq went out for 3 flying laps and handed the car over to me. It's a very, very hot day. Quite tricky apparently, the track. I was told it's not technical, but it is quite technical, a few corners, because after the turn 3 there's a hump which caught me by surprise and threw my car sideways, and by the time I recover I end up in the gravel, but I managed to bring the car out again. Other than that, the rest of the straight are pretty straightforward. The track is slippery, it's hot, very, very hot out there. Our cars are overheating. I think the oil temp went up as high as 158. And our brakes was a little bit spongy as well. It's something that our guys need to look into it for tomorrow.
Both the drivers and engineers have a growing concern over the weather and the increasing temperatures that are causing severe wear to the brakes. This led the team to make a decision, for the safety of both the drivers, to completely replace the brake disc and pads before the next session. The borrowed alternator from the Japan race was also replaced with a new one. The team decided that being overly cautious can be good, as both drivers have already had an off during the practice, and they were not the only ones, but Team FX Primus Aylezo have been lucky so far and have been spared from any major damage to the car. Car number 23 had earlier suffered from a brake failure, and the resulting damage meant the crew had a lot of work to get the car running before the qualifying session the next day. It's the morning of qualifying, and it's time to wake the little bull up from slumber. After a discussion with Chia, the team decided to do a full brake pad and disc brakes replacement. The car was prepped and warmed up for the qualifying session. Afiq was the first in the hot seat, literally, as the temperatures were higher than the day before, rising all the way to 45 degrees. Find out how Team FX Primus Aylezo fared during the qualifying session.